If you think about all of the applications that you...
So with AI, that's kind of...
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live on the Access 360 podcast. This is indeed the 10th episode since we started these kinds of conversations. We say this podcast is about great leaders, great ideas coming to evolve. We learn from each other, mastermind with each other, maybe come up with some new ideas together. We're never sure exactly where this will go. Even in the pre-show conversation, I said, anything top of mind? And these guys said cybersecurity is a pretty hot button topic today as well. And the plan is to talk about technology, AI, and certainly cybersecurity. I've got two pretty sharp guys who know a thing or two about those topics, and I'm sure more. So welcome everybody to this fun conversation. I'm gonna switch the view so that it's speaker on my side on the live here, and let me go. Josh, you're right on my screen right now. How are you? Good day. Happy Friday. How are things coming in?
Good. Oh, it's going well. Coming off of the Thanksgiving holiday, I feel much, heavier, probably by 5 or 6 pounds, and I'm going to go to the gym after this and try and work it all off. So doing great though. How are you?
Brilliant. Brilliant. I came into this. I told Sergey before we got going. I went for a run this morning, and I'm in Georgia. It's 30 degrees, and I jumped in the swimming pool for a cold plunge prior
Nice.
to this
Nice.
conversation.
Yeah,
Josh, why don't you give just a little high level who you are, what you
sure.
do, where some of your focus is, and then we'll
Okay.
bring Sergey in as well.
Okay. So I've been in IT. We'll just go with the general thing for a little over 20 years. I got my, teeth cut just doing systems admin work and network administration, stuff like that, back in the database administration, I should say first. And then just kind of evolved over time into different fields. My focus with my career is always to eventually become an entrepreneur. So I worked in several different industries, notably most recently pharmaceutical. So I worked for LabCorp in their drug development division. Prior to that, I was actually involved in local government as well. I took a role where I was a CIO for a municipality, and that was a good fit at the time, and it was a lot of fun. I actually have to say that too. And then prior to that, I was working in the agricultural space. As well. So I've been across multiple, different industries and kind of seen it all. And the interesting thing about it is there's always like the common threads. Everything's pretty similar, aside from the compliance, pieces that it might be more specific. But IT is handled pretty much in a similar fashion across industries. So that's what I've done that's what I did, excuse me, up until 2018. 2018, I started my own IT company. It was an MSP. I recently sold that in July of this year. So I am focused now on doing like fractional work with certain industries as a chief technology officer kind of role, that kind of thing. And then also being an IT kind of advisor, trusted advisor, or technical expert for the mid-market businesses that are in those spaces that I kind of talked about before. So that's kind of where I'm at in my background. I could go into more detail if you want, but I could go on for an hour, so I'm trying to keep it short.
Brilliant, brilliant. No,
Yeah.
that's plenty. And as you were saying that, I like to think about these conversations as why would somebody want to think about these things a little bit more strategically? And for me, with the staffing business and with our insurance business, it's come to light. Like we're really good at staffing, we're really good at insurance, but behind a growing business is all kinds of technology that
Mhm.
oftentimes we're just piecing it together because we need an immediate
Yeah.
solution to put a band-aid on something that we know is important.
Right.
And we probably haven't had a good consult
Right.
holistically and saying, hey, this is
Strategic. Yeah.
this is how all of this should fit together. And you're
Yeah.
probably either leaving a lot on the table or you're wasting a lot of time, energy, and money doing the things that you're doing. So,
Absolutely.
um,
Yep.
Yep. And
That's
let me
then
bring
that's the
in,
most important thing. Sorry. And then
yeah,
yeah,
no,
go
no, no
ahead. Yeah.
problem. Let's
Just
bring
to
in,
make it all come together. Yep. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. And let's bring Sergey into the conversation. Sergey, good to have you here. I met Sergey recently in a business networking group, and we had a follow-up conversation about these things, technology and AI and infrastructure, even a little bit of virtual staffing and virtual assistants. Good day, Sergey. How are you today?
Hey, doing real well. Thank you. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
good to have you. Do you want to share just a little light about yourself, background,
Yeah.
and where you focus some
Yeah,
energy?
absolutely. So, can relate to Josh. I'm also running an MSP, managed service provider for those who listening. It's the basically IT services companies, a company that services small and medium businesses to help them with their technology. Yes, technology is a big part of for every business. In fact, like I would say that all businesses are technology businesses. If you remove technology from them, I don't think they're going to exist. If you think about, all the software products that businesses use and hardware, right? So my background is I studied computer science, graduated. I'm an immigrant from Russia. They have a very high math. I had a very high proficiency in mathematics, programming. And when I moved to North America 20 years ago, I guess just started what I do the best, and IT. I didn't speak good English, but I spoke good C++. I joke. So, but now I run two MSPs, actually, two tech companies. One of them focuses on nonprofit market across North America, and one is for focusing a big on cybersecurity. So, I wrote a book called Hack Proof, and it's became Amazon bestseller. I now speak worldwide on topics of cybersecurity, and it is a big problem. Let's be honest. It's not many people understand how big it is, but it's one of the largest economies now. We're talking about trillions of dollars being stolen every year, and I do again my background also brought me to working with a multitude of different companies. And I find that I enjoy the most working with fast-growing companies. David, you mentioned about with the growth comes the pain, right? But I truly believe that technology can ease that pain. If you put technology properly, the companies can scale much faster. And now it comes to the point where I practice a so-called 3S model. 3S. First S is simplify, second is secure, and third is scale. And you do need to do it in that order. So simplifying the business before you secure it is quite important. And same thing with scaling. Companies trying to scale before they secure it or simplify it. So we'll talk more about that if you want. But which scaling, by the way, relates to offshoring and creating distributed teams. And I'm truly believe that every modern company should embrace distributed workforce. You can't just have local people. You need to set up distributed workforce and make them work securely and efficiently.
I
That's
love it.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that we've got a fully loaded deck here of topics we could choose from. And I was, as you were saying that, Sergey, I used to work at JP Morgan, and I think Jamie Dimon at some point said, "We're not a bank. We're actually an upstart technology business, and if we don't get technology right, the bank's not going to be doing so well." And then I see
Yeah.
Josh put in the chat as well that Josh T. Chambers or John T.
John
Chambers,
G.
CEO of
Yeah.
Oh,
Cisco.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that where the quote came from, or
I
at least one of them, Josh?
Yeah, I looked it up while Sergey was talking. It looks like he was the one who originally said it. He was in 1995. He became CEO of Cisco until he resigned in 2015. Looks like so, and he went to be the board chairman, I think, or something like that. So yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's the
Well,
guy.
and I think it's a good point that you brought up, Sergey, that regardless of the business you're in, technology is going to be a critical, crucial, and now with AI, it's already getting inside your business, and you may not even realize you have access to some of the capabilities and capacities, which is what I'm seeing with a lot of our customers is they have a lot of these platforms for, let's just say it's a call service, but now the call service has an AI component. It's got this component, it's got a reporting component, but most have no idea the leverage inside the technology, and most are probably inefficiently integrated as well. So where should we go? Cybersecurity, I think, came up pre-show. So let's go back and forth a little bit. Josh, what's top of mind? And I like to frame it in, if somebody's listening to this, they're in the business world and they say, like if I'm reacting to cybersecurity as the COO of Access Virtual Staffing, how is it impacting me? Well, we haven't been impacted by a cybersecurity data breach. However,
Right.
almost every single one of our clients says, how do you guys make sure that stuff's not going to happen overseas in the Philippines or otherwise? But to you, Josh, like what's top of mind? What are the big things that are coming up for people and businesses?
Well, right now in the technology side, where all of us like Sergey and I live, behind the scenes is kind of the way to think of that. Not in the business side necessarily. We're concerned mostly about how AI is affecting it, because you can generate with these large language models. What used to be script kiddie stuff back in the day, so to speak, which is, just a script someone would take and run on a machine and create and try and hack the machine or hack into stuff. Now you have an AI doing it that has a ton of resource behind it, right? Billions and billions of data points that it can pull from. And you can create scripts that, can theoretically hack into a lot of different systems or, find backdoors that humans couldn't really find very easily or would take a lot longer at least for them to find. And so the concern around that is, you have AI doing that, and then you have, companies like, I'll take SentinelOne for example. SentinelOne's been doing AI since, before it was a buzzword in everybody's, house or whatever. So SentinelOne's like the defense AI, so you got AI attacking AI kind of thing, so it's kind of an interesting world to live in right now. And I think you're seeing more and more like people getting involved with how to use AI as a tool, and then on both sides, right? So that's kind of an interesting play for the business owner, for the people that are out there. Kind of, I'm trying to think of how to tie that back into people who might be listening to this, and like that's all great, Josh, but that's kind of behind the scenes, like you said. It's all kind of geeky. Um, what concerns me is having the right stack and the right amount of resource put towards cybersecurity for a business. And what that means more specifically is hiring somebody like an MSP or an MSSP, managed security services provider, is what that means, to watch your environment and make sure that it's not being attacked at any given point throughout the day. So there's a lot of great companies out there. I mean, I could rattle them off, but I don't think you want me to do that right now. But there's a ton of good ones. And as an advisor, my job is to kind of plug those pieces in place, right? That's really where my role comes in. So I like working with companies to help try and solve that problem because it's complex and it's something that, even though businesses are kind of similar in their IT approach, like I mentioned before, compliances are different and there's different focus points on each parts of your business. But at the end of the day, if you find the right one that's in the right industry, you can match them up and make sure that you're protected. So I know I feel like it's kind of a weak answer, and I'm saying grab a company and throw it in there, but
Well,
it's so
let me
complex.
ask this to maybe
Yeah,
fine tune it a little bit. If I'm a
yeah.
small business, let's say anywhere from 5 to 50 employees, just to give the context of that
Sure.
scenario, what's like the lowest hanging fruit? What's the thing that most
Okay.
business owners are not doing that is like a big risk? And like what's the simple thing that
Mhm.
would move the needle at least even just a little bit? It's like, hey, I need a technology system monitoring my infrastructure, or what's the simple answer there?
The best answer, there's two things I'd focus on if you're in that size, because you're not going to be able to most likely to afford a full, big contract, I wouldn't think, depending on your revenue. But it would be, put something in place over your email, because 93 to 95%, depending on who you ask, of all hacks start there. They come from links and bad stuff coming in inbound into your email, into your Outlook inbox. And the second thing would be have a really, really good security platform put on your endpoints, meaning like and I'll just throw like a threat locker or a Sentinel One or Crouch, something like that. And those are things you can't get on your own. Just to give you guys a little context, or business owners might be listening to this podcast, you're going to need to partner with somebody like an MSP to get some of those resources. So that's something to focus on. So get with an MSP might be the actual answer here, because they'll be able to put those pieces in place for you and
Yeah.
add those to your business. And that's the simple answer for
I
sure.
think it's been a fascinating exploration just for me. I mean, I've only known, I mean, I didn't even know what the acronym MSP stood for
Yeah.
until Sergey just defined it for me. But I had heard it. No, I'm just kidding. I had heard it a number of times recently and then realized there's a whole world out there that I'm now fascinated by, the number of providers, the number of solutions, and a lot of the stuff that people I think business owners say, "Oh, you need voice over IP technology." They do a
Right.
search and then they choose the top one, and they usually
Yeah.
just say, "Okay, let's go with that." Or I need cybersecurity, so they do a search and click the thing, and then they put it in, and yeah, they have no idea what's going. Not that they have no idea, but it's a limited purview relative to someone like Josh or Sergey here who are in those spaces and realize it's sometimes it's a simple tweak versus
Hmm.
an in-depth tweak to at least limit exposure in a
Yeah.
significant way. Sergey, where do you land in this conversation? Cybersecurity, AI, and protecting in the small business space.
Yeah, of course. So that's actually exact the market I'm working in. We call this size of companies a hacker sweet spot, because there's for two reasons. Number one, that size of company that already have employees, they probably already have some equity in the business. They have brand. They already have employees. They already probably at certain level in revenue. But at the same
Hmm.
time, they're too small for having a technology like tech company, or they're probably doing it themselves. They or they Googling and trying to find answers and buying tools themselves, right?
Yeah.
So and that's exactly the type of companies uh, that need help, that need that MSP. By the way, it's funny because you and I, we both in BNI community, right? So they have an MSP term which defines as member success program. So I think it's important
That's why I
to
get a little confused with these acronyms. Like, thank you for
Yeah.
defining it. Yeah.
yeah, no. MSP is really, it's like a lawyer. Every business needs a legal company, they need
Mhm.
HR company, they need an accounting company, they need an IT company. We just have that term managed service provider because it is a broad level of service that these companies offer. So and next thing is, I really wanted to tell you, like we talked about the hacker sweep spot, and there's this mentality that you need to start thinking about. Oh, okay. And I like to use this terms like a hacker because and I'm actually um, teach a lot. My book called Hack Proof. So the next thing I always tell organizations is that treat IT and cybersecurity as a leadership issue, not a tech issue.
Yeah.
Most people say, "Well, my tech guy is going to take care of it." It's not my thing. But honestly, it has to be discussion with the leadership team. It has to be CEO, owner of the business need to really pay attention to this type of discussion. Because again, the risk is just too high. They can essentially
Yep.
lose the company overnight. I know
Hmm.
Josh and I, we can tell hundreds of horror stories where again, small negligence can put business at risk, you know. And I even introduced myself as a not a business owner or CEO. I'm actually a cyber risk advisor because people don't listen to me if I tell them, oh, I work in IT, I'm a tech guy. When I tell them that I'm a risk advisor, oh, you're looking at it. Oh, what you're saying is I'm at risk. Oh, yeah, you are. And let me
Yep.
tell you where it is. So that's why I think before we get into technicalities, I think it's important to talk about risks, about leadership discussion. So that's why I'm now talking to people, not a tech people. I talk to leaders in the boardroom. So
Yep.
this is just the mind shift needs to be switched over, and then you are the sweet spot for hackers. You are being targeted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because as you're saying that, I was thinking about like somebody who buys a house. Like, what do you need? You need a real estate
Yep.
broker, you need a mortgage guy, and then you get your house. But you like the insurance policy on the house is usually something that's just kind of put in place to uh, check off a box that's required for the home purchase. But as you're saying that, like we as leaders. I think if you're a solopreneur, you're probably not thinking too much about cybersecurity. But then as you guys have said, as things grow and scale, that's where there's probably the sweet spot or the inflection point where it becomes something that is really valuable. But we, as I think, small business owners or somebody just getting going, it's not even on their radar until either something happens or they
Hmm.
meet a Josh or a Sergey that says, "Hey, did you think about this?" And then you're like, "Oh, wow, that there is risk there. I
Right.
should do something about it." Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I completely, that's reality. And I was just looking up, trying to find an old note, as you're talking about the small businesses that could go away overnight from getting hacked and getting, ransomware or something like that, and crypto lockered on their files. And for those that don't know, it just means your stuff is hacked and you can't access it. We'll just say that for now to keep it simple. But I think I was trying to find the statistic and I'm having difficulty finding it, but it's something like within 48 hours or 72 hours, if you're down, most small businesses can't recover, something
Mhm.
like that. It's really, really small window. It's bizarre. And that's a stat that's come out over the years and been validated over the years by Gartner and others that have looked at, small businesses that have gone under from cyber attacks and like how it's happened, especially insurance providers, the cyber insurance providers now. And to that point, cyber insurance companies, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways to get the attention of the boardroom, the leadership in organizations. And I really, really wish that someday the cyber insurance providers start putting some teeth behind their policies that say, when you fill out your application on that side of it, you have to have these things in place. And by these things, multi-factor authentication, spam filtering, stuff that I've mentioned before, all those kinds of things that every business has to have in place. And that will take your risk, as Sergey mentioned, that whole risk score. I mean, that's really what we're trying to measure. We're trying to take your environment, look at it holistically, and say, okay, how at risk are you? If you're like 0.001%, you're in pretty good shape, obviously, right? That's pretty good place to be. But if you're at 90%, a lot of people probably look at 90% and say, oh, that seems good. No, that's a really bad spot to be. You want to be, in that 99% range for sure, especially if you have a high tech business, right? Like say you're providing, you're under CMMC compliance and you're providing something for the US military and you're in the United States, that kind of thing. You have to have these things in place. For example, even as a startup or a small business, you have to have that. Financial sector is another one, right? Like where it's absolutely required. Absolutely has to be in place, and you have to have those risk scores,
So
measured and fine
that's a good
tuned.
question. Let me ask that question.
Yeah.
So
Excuse me.
for someone who is new to this world, like has no idea how they'd even approach it, is it easy for you guys to do a base level assessment
Hmm. Oh,
to
absolutely.
figure out? And Josh, you go first, and then we'll come to Sergey. Like, how easy is it? Because sometimes it's, I don't want to deal with cybersecurity, but at the same time, you guys know how important that is. But
Right.
me, maybe,
Yeah.
it's like, it's not a big deal. We'll deal with that when we need to. But how do you
Right.
assess it? What's the assessment process?
Well, the assessment process it'll be little bit different from what probably even what Sergey will tell you versus me, but essentially you're going in and looking at an initial, interrogation, if you will, like interview, trying to find out exactly what tools are in place. And then for me, it's putting some tools on the network that can look at it and grab data. Because what you tell me versus what I find is going to be, compared and contrast, so to speak. And then we're going to take a look at it and figure out where the gaps are essentially. And usually that doesn't take, it's not that hard. It's for the interview piece of it, you may need to have, depending on the size of organization, right? you might need to talk to a few key stakeholders that could take up some time, but only hour or two a piece, depending on how deep we need to go with the compliance. And then the software itself is usually, typically, I don't know, it depends on, again, the complexity of the client, but it could be anywhere from a day to a week, maybe a couple weeks if it's really complex, that kind of thing. But usually it's pretty fast. And so we can get those results very, very quickly and get tools and recommendations in place. And when I say tools, I'm not going to, when I'm doing it, I don't try to dive in so deeply like I'm trying to explain this now in the podcast, like the board. What I want to tell them is like, here's the stack. This is what it's going to look like. If you want to know more, I'll dive into it with you. But if you put this in place, you're good. We're gonna monitor that continuously going forward. So
Well,
that's where I'd go.
I'm guessing, yeah, as you're saying that, you ask a few questions. If you ask the simple question, hey, how's your cybersecurity approach? And they're like, what'd you just
What's
ask me?
that? Yeah.
We already
Yeah.
know there's some
Yeah.
probable, if not definite issues that are at hand. But then there's the deeper dive. It's like, oh, well, how would we look at that? And then there's probably some probing questions that each of you guys are
Exactly.
have as you explore a conversation like that. Sergey, how are you looking at the analysis, or at least the initial consult?
Of course, I work with lots of small businesses, as I mentioned, and a lot of people calling us. So I've actually it's really straightforward. I actually simplified the entire process for those who are listening who just wants to know how to even find that score. Like, are you in the zero or like that risk score, right? So so first, I wanted to explain to people there's kind of two types of tests. One is external and one is internal.
Mhm.
So an external test is is when somebody just trying to uh, get into your email or your website and from external source. And there's a term called penetration test. A penetration test. I know some people may have different interpretation of it, but in technology, we want to do. We're trying to get in the organization. We want to test. We want to test in the environment, and essentially that's what we want to do. Now, there's an external penetration test and there's an internal penetration test. Now, if you look at insurance companies, before they give you a quote, they're going to try to do that external test, and some of them already have it on their website. So I've actually
Mhm.
built my own external pen test, which only takes 60 seconds to get that initial score. And a quick plug, it's hackproofscore.com. Hackproofscore.com. Think about the hackproof score as like a cyber is like your credit score, but for your cybersecurity. Now it is a 60-second or so test, so you can put your domain name in there, and it will give you the score. And it's built on the same technology as what those insurance companies usually do, right? So you will get either from 0 to 100 a score. Now, typically for me, that's the first step. But if the company is going to say, Sergey, we've done the test, I want to know more. I want to get a little bit more information. Obviously, the Hackproof score, it's free test, it's
And
quick.
what's the website? Hackproofscore.test?
Dot com.
.com. Oh, .com. Okay, go ahead.
So what we do is we do external tests as well. We're going to do combination of internal, external, and it's not expensive. It's something that you can hire any IT person, MSP, do for you just to do a quick test. And the way it works, you send a client a link, and they will install it. They click it on their computers, and yes, it takes about we usually wait 72 hours. It just sits on your computer internally and scans everything and scans to see how things are going. And after 3 days, it spins up a report, and that report goes over everything that it found. Do you have a passwords problem? Do you have a backup problems? Do you have this risks? So typically that test will cost anywhere about $1,000 or so, and that gives you probably that over like a big picture item. But then if you really want to get into even more details, that's where we need to really ask questions. We need to ask, do you have a policies for this? Do you have this? Do you have that? That's where maybe you need to spend even more time. So hoping this explains this whole concept of external test, internal test, and more detailed. I don't know, hoping it's not too complicated.
How's how's a 40% score? What does that mean?
Well, it actually has it gives you a little explanation there, and you can download. Here you go. Thanks for doing that. Good job. So yeah, it gives you a little bit of information. So you can see on your right. You have a missing DMARC
Yep.
protection. So we're talking about DNS records. It's something that managed on your web hosting side, and I think it says that your emails now could be at risk at spoofing.
Right.
Spoofing is when somebody can pretend it's you and just intersect, basically use your domain name, your email address on your behalf and just send an email to your vendors,
Well,
pretending.
this is like a, I mean, it makes it pretty simple in a short period of time. If you're talking to somebody and you say, "Hey, like just do this," and you'll at least see some like, oh, somebody can use my email and spoof me and pretend to be me, and like that's concerning, right? So I think that brings out the concern. My next question, just to kind of forward, and I know we're just scratching the surface. You guys can go deep and wide, but I think this is more a conversation for the layman who may be new to a conversation, maybe early on in their entrepreneurial journey, or have been in it for a while but never thought about cybersecurity. What are the usual pushbacks you guys get from clients when they could use this kind of support and consult, but there's usually one, two, three things that clients say, "Nah, I don't need that now," or that's not a good use of my time, energy, money. Josh, what do you hear most? What are the things that
The objection.
uneducated entrepreneurs like myself
Yeah.
would say, "Josh, you're crazy. I don't need that."
Well, funny enough, a lot of the small, if we're talking about small business space, in that realm, you have a lot of, oh, my IT guy will handle it, I don't need that kind of thing. That's typically what you hear, which is, understandable from the side of, when you're in IT, you're trusting me with all your deepest, darkest, so to speak, secrets for your business, right? Like all your intellectual property, like I have control over it, right? Like you have to have somebody you trust. And that's where a lot of that comes in, that mentality and that pushback. Because if I'm talking to you, it's like, well, why aren't you talking to him kind of thing? And how is that working out? So um, a lot of small businesses have that person that they rely on in that space, and so that's the biggest challenge I would say in the small business space. And obviously the other one is cost, right? No one wants to spend money on this stuff. No one wants to pay their CPA either, but
Yeah.
you have to do it. And to tie it back to what we were talking about before, when I couldn't find the stat and I went and found it, the 85% of all ransomware attacks target small businesses. So it's not, a lot of people think, oh, I'm too small, they don't care about me, which is a big, you know, wrong way to think in the game now. When you're in business, you have to think about this because everybody, when you're online, and you are online or you wouldn't be in business, you're going to get attacked. And a lot of people think they're exempt. There's things called ransomware as a service where people can go and pay somebody to attack you and that kind of thing. Now you can make money doing that. It's kind of crazy what the world is turning into with that. And another important thing that I'm just going to throw this out there too, since it's on top of mind, is if the attack leads to a greater than 10 days ransomware where you can't do business for greater than 10 days, there's a study that came out that said 93% of those businesses that reach that threshold of 10 days or greater are out, they're bankrupt within a year. So that's really your risk as a
I was
small
gonna
business
I
owner.
was gonna ask like
That's
how do
it.
you throw pain and fear at
Yeah,
people? Because sometimes that's the biggest motivator is like if
right.
you don't put something in place, you may be victim of this kind of attack. It's going to put your business down for 10 days, and 90% of businesses that actually have that impact and have that experience
Yep,
are out of business a year later. Like
right.
that's what's at stake here, ladies and gentlemen, kind of
Yep.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an interesting way to think about it because, gone are the days. I tell this to the municipal government clients, right? So the people that I talk to in that world, it's I tell them like, look, you're basically fighting nation states who it would be tantamount to like a nation, North Korean troops showing up in your city and starting to attack your government buildings. A similar mindset you should have when you're talking about cybersecurity within your city, because that's what's happening. They're attacking you. I mean, there was a 60 Minutes just did a story, this is maybe a month ago now when it came out, about a 10,000 citizen sized city in the United States. It was up in Massachusetts. Forget the name of the city off the top of my head, but they were being attacked by the Chinese government, pulled in the FBI. They were in the water supply. They were in the water supply systems. That's really scary because if anybody who's listening to this knows anything about water supplies, you can poison it. It's very easy to do because those systems are hooked up to different chemical types. And so you disrupt the chemical flows, and all of a sudden your tap water becomes poison in that city. You could kill thousands of people doing that. I mean, that's a huge, huge risk. And that's why this stuff has to be taken so seriously. A 10,000 city is not a big city, obviously, right? We can all put our heads around that. But in the city I was part of was about 55,000 citizens at the time, and we had a water supply, and that was my biggest fear, was keeping all those, SCADA devices and all that stuff. Like, hey, we need to air gap all this, and no one gets access to this room, and all those kinds of things. So it's really, really scary what can happen with this stuff, and it really has to be taken seriously. If not, in the small business, you're obviously not necessarily having the chance that where you could have physical harm come to people with your business, like a city in that case that I just mentioned. But talking about your family, talking about your future, talking about your kids' college, fund or something like that that's going to come out of this thing, and you're putting all those things at risk when you could spend a few $100 a month or something like that to throw some really good, state-of-the-art tools in place to keep your business running. I think it's totally worth it.
Mhm.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Sergey, what do you got? What's the top pushback you get, and how do you get around it, or how do you make them see the light?
No, absolutely. By the way, Josh, I love talking about critical infrastructure. This is really crazy stuff. But if we're bringing it back to the small business segment, pushbacks, and I don't like to use, FUD selling or fear mongering techniques. But at the end of the day, it's education for me. So when I'm talking to people, yeah, I know that they're going to be against it. They're not going to buy it. They're going to probably look at this as a huge cost for them. But what I'm going to start is really simply educating them. For example, when a small thing like I really explaining people how hackers work really, and a hacker works. There's a three biggest up.
Hey, Sergey, are you a former hacker?
No. Well, kind of like
White hat hacker, maybe.
I'm a white hacker. So we'll talk. I'm actually an ethical hacker, certified ethical
Right.
hacker. But point is, the think about this. Like, okay, you're a business owner. We're gonna have a quick conversation. Say, hey, okay, let me explain you how hackers work. So it's usually three stages. The first is actually four: research and preparation. So first, they're gonna do a little bit of research on you, find all the information about you. So they're going to say, okay, great company, great target. They're probably going to have X amount of dollars. They have, remember that sweet spot. You have employees. You have something to lose. Okay. All right. Next thing. Next thing is that penetration. So when they're getting into your systems, and that usually takes from the moment when they start doing research on you to that it's probably a week or so, 2 weeks, and that they get into your system. But here's the coolest thing: what happens next? Next is they're not going to hack you. You're not going to notice anything. We call that data exfiltration stage. So they're going to sit in your system, and you're not going to know about it for average 200 days. So lots of this, and Josh can say, like after you do investigation after the breach, we can go back and see when did it all started. And average takes 200 days for attacker to sit in your system undetected.
Yep.
Okay, and then they're gonna hit you when you least expect it, when you get that grant money from your bank, when you get that big paycheck from your client, when you get you're the biggest day in the year for you for sales, that's when they're gonna
Yeah.
hit you. They're gonna hit you in the right time, and then the last stage is the recovery stage. And recovery stage, when you're going to lose everything, and if you have a systems in place to get back, and which is another big thing. Like most businesses don't prepare for that part. So I would definitely just start talking to them about educating them. And the question is, okay, how do you know if they're currently not in your system? How do you know if they're not reading your emails right now? And they're gonna
Could
say,
you
oh,
I mean, just on that, like if somebody were in my system right now and you were in my system, you could tell that they were in my system?
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. You're missing critical software. You all use Google email, or you have Microsoft.
Microsoft.
You have some software to run your business. But what most businesses missing software to protect their business.
Right.
They're missing the weapons. There's a war going on right now. It's an invisible war, and it's a huge war. There's a lot of money in this business.
And it sounds like it doesn't take much either. Like a
Yep.
simple consult with you guys would lead to at least I have some sanity about whether or not I'm exposed. Like I'll get a yes or no, like you're exposed or you're not, or you have this much risk of exposure if you
Yep.
don't do something. I think that in and of itself is worth exploring, right?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, well,
Absolutely.
we gotta wrap up this conversation. I feel like we're barely even scratching the surface of it. But let's do this. Maybe the closing thought is like what here's I'll say it from the staffing side, right? Like I see the value of virtual staffing for our clients in the sense that when you get the right people in place at a cost-effective rate, it can be a game changer for you, your business. You're no longer
Yeah.
doing $5 to $10 admin work for 50% of your day, which is a complete waste of your zone of genius or your expertise, right? Like I know that instinctively talking staffing. So for you guys with cybersecurity and the technology space, what's like that like repeated message that keeps coming up where you're like, man, I wish just people would understand this. And we've probably touched on it, but Josh, I'll give you the first sweep at it, and then we'll go to Sergey.
What's the one thing? I wish people would honestly put MFA more often in place. Of course, that's becoming less and less of an issue now with Microsoft forcing it. But multi-factor authentication. Sorry, there's another acronym we can throw at everybody today. But that's something that and like I said, email, since your email is so, such a point of entry that's exploited so much, like just protecting that is the key thing. I mean, there's a story about there's a small business owner, and I won't go into too much detail because it's very simple. Email came in, he clicked a link, something sat on his computer. Um, and like Sergey was just talking about, that 200-day thing, they just sat and listened. They don't do anything, right? And then they wait. Guy had $450,000 cleared out of his bank eventually because of it. He was the CEO of a company, a small business, and it's gone. I mean, that's money that you can't recover because they wired it out, right? The bank is like, oh, sorry, not our problem kind of
Hmm.
thing. And that's the risk you can run when you don't have your email protected. So that's kind of the one thing that I always keep going back to is it's out of all of the, like, you can lock your endpoint down, your laptop, your PCs, and your business down as much as possible with, BitLocker, which is the encrypted built-in Windows, hard drive encryption stuff, throw on a bunch of software, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. But if your email is not getting protected, it's not getting scrubbed in some manner, you're just exposing a lot more risk to it. So that's probably the one thing I'd point out to answer that question.
I
Yeah.
like MFA, get your email taken care of,
Yeah.
scrubbed, and watch out. Very good. Sergey, what do you got? Anything that is just pops up for you regularly?
Yeah, for sure. I'm passionate about helping companies build and secure their distributed teams. Whether
Yeah.
they
That's
work
good.
in Philippines or they work in other side of country. So I guess the rule number, yes, I definitely agree on that front with the 2FA. But for me, I would say if I would just take one thing is passwords. So
Mm,
uh,
that's good.
people sharing passwords easily. Cybersecurity is such a big topic. Again, we can make the whole podcast series
Yeah,
around
we could.
it. What I would
Sounds like we
recommend.
got a brainchild here. Come on, guys.
Maybe.
But I like to dumb things down. I like to dumb things down, especially for
Yep.
non-techie people. All right. So think about cybersecurity as an onion. Onion
Mhm.
has different layers. So different layers of a security, and each security layer you can actually name that layer. So, for example, we were just talking about email security. Okay,
Mhm.
that's email security. So you need to
Right.
protect your email. So you need to put things in place to protect your email. And there's a layer, and I think a very important layer I would put for distributed workforce is the password security. So if
Mhm.
you think about password security is uh, is uh, is again, you need tools to protect your passwords. You need
Right.
policy to use to put in place to manage the password use. So what I typically do is I ask people, how do you give access to distributed workers to your IT infrastructure? And they say, well, we give them this password. And how do you give it? So the basic thing is first of all, for password security, you need to use password manager software
Hmm.
application, which
Yes.
you can share without even giving the actual password to your remote employee. They don't even need to know the passwords. You just need to give
Right.
them permission to access the password token,
Right.
essentially. So that's what I would recommend, and really and people need to understand what kind of passwords to use. If you can remember the password, that's not a good password. You
Yeah.
need to have a long password for a reason, so it's not crackable, and so you cannot remember it. So you can start using tools for that. So I would recommend for people who work remotely, never share them with the passwords. Give them access to those passwords through Password Manager. Password
Yeah.
security is one of the easiest to understand securities, but it's at the same time it's most important. I always tell people, they ask me, "Oh, Sergey, how secure is ChatGPT? All information is there." Well, I tell them, listen, you don't need to worry about their security. You need to worry about your password to ChatGPT. If somebody gets
Yep.
access to ChatGPT password, uh, that's it. It's done. So how do you manage your passwords right now? Oh,
Mm.
have them in a Google Chrome, or
Right.
I have it in Apple Notes. Like Josh said, like a simple example. If you're saving your passwords in your Chrome browser, I can send a little email. People say
Yeah.
about email,
Yep.
people get hacked through the email. Well, they receive the email with a link, and that link says pay this invoice or click here to
Right.
find out more. But when they click on that link, within 30 seconds, all the passwords that's inside of your Chrome browser gets encrypted and sent to the bad guy. That's
Right.
how it works. And if
Yep.
you have your password for your bank in that
Saved in your
Chrome
browser.
browser saved, or
Yep.
your ChatGPT, that's it. That
It's a
you're
great
done.
point.
Game over.
It's a
Wow.
great point. Yep. It's a great
I mean,
point.
I think these final tips are just enough
Yeah.
for anybody. Like one,
I ha
check
I
your.
have to throw something out. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I had to
go
throw
ahead.
Sergey said something that made me think about tokenization as we was talking about with passwords. One of the things, since we're in the holiday spirit and people are probably going to hear this soon, if you're not already using, like if you have an iPhone or Android phone, both have pay apps in them now, right? Where you can take your credit card and load them in there. And when the key thing, I like telling people to do that because it's tokenizing your actual credit card number. So every time you are using that phone to pay for something at like a checkout counter, it's better for you from a security standpoint to use your phone as opposed to like taking your card out and holding it on the machine. Because
Mm.
with a lot of that, skimming that goes on, that kind of thing, that I don't know that the phone can detect that. I'm not going to pretend I know that piece of it, but I know that it's protecting your credit card. It is tokenizing your credit card when you're doing that. And that's more secure because there's these little devices that you can get, like a Flipper Zero, for example. You can get them like $200 online, and you can program them to basically grab when your card is being used, kind of thing. Or like, unfortunately, you can also grab like certain car manufacturers, you can grab the rolling codes to unlock people's vehicles too. It's really, really scary. Since we're in the holiday spirit, I wanted to talk about tokenization.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
put your cards in your phones, like put those in there because that's actually really secure.
I mean, that
A
would
lot
probably be
better.
a really good episode, is just
Yeah,
like what are the small little security measures that you can implement in minutes that
yeah,
would significantly increase or decrease the risk that you're exposed to currently.
yeah. We should talk about that. We should come up with a list. We should,
Yeah, yeah, we can do a round
game
two
that out.
of this conversation for sure.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, this has been awesome. Thank you both for joining. I think as I said earlier, we've barely scratched the surface, but hopefully for anybody tuning in, you got a couple of ideas, and if
Yep.
anything, it plants the seed that you should get some kind of consult into your
Hmm.
business or infrastructure such that you at least have a little more peace of mind and know some of the things that you should be putting in place. Josh, how does everybody get in contact with you? What's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, great question, especially since I just sold my MSP and everything's changing. So you can find me. I'm found at FHTechnologyInc.com. That's my website. You can find me there. That's the easiest way to get in touch, find out more about, me and my company, all that kind of thing. J Fetzer at FHTechnologyInc.com is my email. You can email me, ask me any questions there as well.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today, Josh. Sergey, how do we get in contact with you?
Well, for me, it's pretty simple. It's my first name and last name.com, or
Oh, there you
my
go.
email. Yeah, my email is sergey@sergeypoltev.com. I like to do initial consultation just personally, right? But my website, you can actually check out my book on cybersecurity, or do that test that I mentioned to you. And we were chatting about the credit card theft. We also created a small little product. It's called Hack Proof Card, which is our
Oh,
FID
nice.
blocker. So it's you can actually put it in your wallet, and it protects your wallet. It creates that shield from unauthorized, scanning of your wallets. So yeah, everything is on my website, sergeypoltev.com, and you can email me at sergey@sergeypoltev.com.
Beautiful. And if I could plant any seed for anyone tuning in, if you are listening to this conversation, my eyes were opened recently to the vastness of all the different technology solutions and platforms and all of these things. So, whether it's Josh or Sergey or someone else, I highly recommend one, learning about it, and then having somebody take a look at what you're doing or not doing right now, because I
Yeah.
think it's highly valuable. And based on this conversation, it sounds like it's something that is becoming more and more of a risk that we're probably not even aware of the depth of.
Yep.
With that, final word, Josh. Anything you want to leave people with, and then we'll go to Sergey.
Yeah, no, just use a password manager like Sergey said. Put your cards in your phones if you can, try and let the tools that exist out there today help you. Don't be afraid of them. There's plenty of people, myself, Sergey included, in that realm that can help you with that task. All you have to do is reach out.
Beautiful, Sergey. Final word to you.
I'll add three words: simplify, secure, scale, and in that order.
I like it.
3S. It's great that you found that from somebody else as well. I didn't know it's from CEO of Cisco. But really, at the end of the day, think about 3S if you really want to grow your business. Simplify, secure it, and then you're going to be off to the races and scale that business.
Yep,
But
that's
don't
right.
forget about the first two S's.